Class, today we're going to look at more motivational theories. So far in this unit, we've talked about some of your notion, or looked at some of your notions of what motivation is or how to motivate people. We've looked at a video by Daniel Pink about what he talks about regarding motivation, and we've also had a reading about motivation, what drives motivation, what makes motivation happen. And so today we're going to look at more content of what theories are there that explain how people get motivated. And so again, I want to make sure we're clear that we're not looking at a single theory of motivation as the one theory that works all the time. Just like we've looked at Daniel Pink, we've looked at the readings. Different theories to work for different areas of work or work for different situations. And so we can't, get locked into one theory or believe one will always work. But I want to give you as much of these theories or as many of these theories as possible and thought processes as possible. So while you're engaged in the workforce or looking at how to motivate yourself, you have access to many different theories and many different potential things that might work for you and work for your workers at a later point in time. And so today we're looking at three types of theories: the content theories of motivation, the process theories of motivation, and the reinforcement theories of motivation. And so today we'll look at only content theories, and the next motivation lesson we'll look at the process theories and the reinforcement theories. And so when we look at the content theories of motivation, we want to look at theories like the hierarchy of needs theory that we previously talked about, that Maslow discussed. And so just as a review, Maslow looked at the content theory being lower order needs and higher order needs. The lower order needs being physiological, safety, and social, and the higher order needs being self-actualization and esteem. And so he talked about a pyramid of needs at the bottom going all the way to the top. And so this pyramid of needs runs under two principles, right? The first is the deficit principle, and the next is the progression principle. And so what does the deficit principle mean? It talks about how you do not get motivated by a type of need or a lower order need or a higher order need once you satisfied that need, right? And so if you're hungry, you want to go get food, but once you've gotten that food and are no longer hungry anymore, you're no longer motivated by food. And so one of the points I made previously in class was talking about how many people talk about how money motivates them, right? And so ultimately, what's money used for? Money is used for buying and acquiring goods or services. And so oftentimes people think about they're going to be motivated by money, but once that money motivation is satisfied to a certain degree, like I have enough money to have a house that I need, I have enough money to satisfy all my generalized spending habits, that might not motivate me anymore. And so once the deficit has been overcome, like the safety has been overcome, the physiological needs have been overcome via money or via security or whatever it may be, then that thing no longer motivates you anymore. Okay. The next principle is the progression principle. And the progression principle talks about where a higher order need is not going to be motivating you until your lower order needs are met, right? And so, for example, if I'm looking at self-esteem, they're saying that need won't be met if my won't be activating me if my physiological or safety and social needs aren't met yet. Again, this is very arguable, but it's talking about we're not going to pursue different types of things if we are starving. We are going to try to fix our starvation need before we're looking at a different need or whatnot, right? So I think lots of us can understand that, but again, there are holes in that theory in some places as well, right? So do we really believe that if someone is not having self-actualization, if they don't have some of the low order needs, that self-actualization thing is not even activated? I would argue that it is active, but maybe not as strongly as some of your lower order needs. And so that will take us to our next content theory, which is the ERG theory, which is not progression principle. And so talking about how all your needs can be active at the same time versus kind of ordered up, bottom need satisfied, second need satisfied, et cetera, et cetera. So the ERG theory was theorized by Aldifer, and he talks about three categories of needs, and these are very closely linked to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But these three categories are existence, relatedness, and growth. And so when we talk about existence, we're talking about, like, physiological safety needs, the needs to exist, to survive, to be there. Relatedness needs, talking about kind of more the social, kind of the relationships, emotional intelligence kind of things. And then growth needs, the esteem, self-actualization, to grow better as a person. And so Aldifer talks about three categories of needs existing, but that all three categories can impact motivation at the same time, right? Our existence needs don't need to be met before we strive for growth needs, as an example, right? So all three of those things are happening, active at the same time, all the time, I would say. And while both of these theories are different, they do look at content in terms of different types of needs being satisfied and motivating you separately. While Maslow talks about progression, Aldifer does not talk about progression, or does not think progression is necessary. The next theory we're looking at is the two-factor theory. And so I want you to take specific note of the language in this theory. Make sure you're not kind of confused by what the words are saying. Look at what the language says and what that language means and why it's kind of mentioned like that. And so the two-factor theory talks about what is your job, really, or what do you do? So one is job satisfaction. This is the first factor. And the satisfier factors. So job content. So what do you do? How much achievement is there? How much recognition is there? Responsibility, room for growth, advancement, all these kinds of things. Basically, what is your job? And are you satisfied and happy with what you do, what you're capable of, what your potential is, the growth of your personal, employability skills, all these kinds of things, like what your actual job is, what your career is, how, what the trajectory of you at this place is in terms of what you do, right? So that's job satisfaction. How satisfied are you with what you are doing, right? You could be very satisfied in a job because you love what you do, you are in your career job, but you could still hate your work. And that might be because of job dissatisfaction. And so that could be the hygiene factors of a job, the job context, right? It's not what you do, but the conditions in which you're doing it, right? So what are the working conditions, interpersonal relationships, organizational policies, salary, etc., etc. So you can see job dissatisfaction has nothing to do with your actual work, right? You might love what you actually do, but what surrounds you in your work may be horrible, right? You may have terrible coworkers. You may not be paid well enough. All those kinds of things could trump and be too bad. You might be too dissatisfied by the conditions, the context in which you work, that it overcomes your actual enjoyment, happiness in that workplace. In the same token, you could be in a job, a dead-end job that has no growth, no potential. You didn't go to school for it. You don't really care about the work, but you could love going to work every day because of the people you work with, because of how much money you make, right? And so there's job satisfaction factors, what you do, the kind of your work you're in, and there's job dissatisfaction factors, which is the context, who you're working with, how you're working, and those kinds of things. And so both of those things are imperatively and very, very important into making sure your workers are motivated, right? You want to have your workers feel like they are very, very job satisfied in what they do. They're being driven, their growth, they're being challenged with their technical skills, their education, and all that kind of stuff. And you also want them to be at a place where they want to work, where they enjoy working. The conditions with which they work are amazing, right? So you'll see lots of examples of workplaces, lots of the new tech firms and startups, beanbag chairs, free food, all those kinds of things have nothing to do with job satisfaction. That's all about job dissatisfaction. That's all trying to make you more happy or less dissatisfied with the conditions of your work, right? It's going to make you want to be there, those kinds of things. And while companies like Google or whatnot, if you're a software developer, maybe you are very, very job satisfied as well because you are being challenged and you're growing and you are in one of the best companies potentially in the world in terms of what you want to do. And so every manager, every leader should look at trying to improve job satisfaction by addressing like the content, what you do, what you're actually doing in your work, while reducing dissatisfaction by addressing job context, right? Like making sure that you are in a condition where you are able to work your best. So if you even think about the recent teachers union strikes, what were they striking for, right? Lots of that strike part was about job dissatisfactions. There was working conditions, right? There was salary, those kinds of things, right? It wasn't about necessarily, they don't want to teach. It's just the conditions in which they're teaching in was not satisfactory, right? So they were job dissatisfied to a certain degree, right? So that is the two-factor theory. Again, I like this theory a lot. It explains lots of things. If you think about yourself, some jobs, if you've ever had a job before, some jobs you really, really love, some jobs you really, really hate. Figure out what makes you hate that specific job versus what makes you like that other job. Was it job satisfaction versus job dissatisfaction? What surrounds what that is, and so that also will give you a good insight into yourself, like what's making you happy at your workplace, right? So that'll help you kind of look for your next job, kind of figure out, what kinds of work do I actually like doing, and that will help you. And so the last of the theories that we'll do today is the acquired needs theory. The acquired needs theory talks about, or as McClellan talks about, he talks about three specific needs that people are striving and trying to get. And so one is the need for achievement. And so this is the desire to do something better or more efficiently, to solve problems, master complex tasks. This is a lot about job satisfaction. This is all about job content. What are you doing, right? Are you putting your abilities to work? Are you doing things that actually matter? Are you solving problems, right? Lots of people want to be doing things that they feel is meaningful, right? They have a need to achieve. They have a need to do something that matters in life. And so that's about need for achievement. And so again, you could be paid a lot of money. You could be great coworkers, but you'll see people quit their jobs because they want to pursue something else where they feel like they're better suited, right? And sometimes that's because they have a need for achievement of something, to do something different, right? And so you'll see that a lot. You'll see people go through that. That's what I ultimately kind of did. It's different than this because I was doing other things in my previous job, but you're trying to do something different because you have a desire to go a different route, perhaps, right? And so you'll see people change jobs, all these things for different reasons, taking pay cuts to do so, right? The next is the need for power. The need for power, the desire to control other people, to influence their behavior, or be responsible for them. You'll see lots of people just, they keep on trying to climb that ladder. They keep on trying to go to the top, right? And so I've often been asked, do you ever want to be a principal or a vice principal? And I would say, maybe one day, right? But I don't have a desire for that. Right now, my desires lie in teaching, achieving at what I'm doing right now because I want to do this. But some other people, again, this is not wrong or right. It's just some people want to be in management positions. Some people want to be controlling. Some people want to be pulling those strings to influence other people, right? They want to assume that power, and for whatever reason, right? And so they want to have the responsibility. They want to have the control. They want to be that person to be doing these types of things. That is the need for power. And the last is the need for affiliation. Desire to establish and maintain friendly and warm relationships with other people. So the need for affiliation talks a lot about job dissatisfaction, or to have good relations, your working conditions, what you're around, right? So lots of people often, they'll change jobs because they just don't like the conditions of their work, right? They will say, "Oh, my favorite job of all time was when I was a camp counselor, when I was 18 years old." Meanwhile, this person's 27 and they've been working for 10 years, and that was their favorite job, right? It might not have been very challenging, but they were able to connect with people, be with their coworkers all the time, they're camping or whatever it may be, right? They want to develop relationships And that's the need for affiliation, right? Wanting to go to work, right? Even in the time of COVID, right? People are working from home. Some people could do it amazing because they don't need that interpersonal relationship. But some people are shutting down because they're not talking to people. They're not associating with other people. They need that human interaction to get the best out of them. And so people who are like that are people who are struggling more during quarantine situations, during situations where they can't interact. And lots of those types of people are ones who are breaking quarantine, right? And again, I have my own thoughts about that, but it's because they're addressing their need, their need to interact with people, and that's a real need, and it can't be, I guess, looked down upon. So, all three of these needs that McClellan talks about, the need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation, they all drive different people in different ways. And so it's very important to understand that what drives you might not be what drives the other person. You know, it's like, why are you happy in that quote unquote dead end job? Well, maybe because they don't care about some of the same things that you care about, right? So how can you can't judge people for that, but it's important to understand what motivates people before you come to judgment, right? Otherwise, you're never going to be able to control or to lead your people or to motivate your people in a workplace setting. And so those are the four content theories of motivation that we wanted to talk about today. We'll talk about the process and reinforcement theories in the next lesson, but that was relatively quick because I wanted to do these two readings. So make sure you do these readings tonight, and tomorrow we're actually going to start a case study on motivation and finish that case study and then complete the last of the motivation lessons before we finish up the motivation unit. So again, please send me EDSB messages if you don't understand anything, and then I'll try to cover it as soon as possible. Make sure you look at the journal entry to see what homework you have and what EDSB messages you might have to send for your collaborative learning grids. So that's the lesson on the content theories of motivation. Thank you.